back to the Backyard Professor Chess videos. I've got I'm going to shift gears with you guys. I need to come up with a black repertoire. I'm better with the white pieces than the black pieces, and I need to find some openings. I've been advised just to pick one or two, but white sometimes opens with the king pawn and sometimes opens with the queen pawn, and you got to have a different opening for each one. So I'm going to start looking at the Sicilian defense, the Sicilian and the Sicilian dragon, for the next several videos, just exploring various openings and see what I want for my black opening, right? In the meantime, I've been looking at some Sicilian games, and there's some phenomenal games. This one is by Bilek and Fischer. This was the Stockholm Interzonal in 1962. And I get this out of Paul Powell's book, My Most Memorable 60 Games, The Other Memorable 60 Games by Paul Powell. He's a master who gives master lessons with a newsletter online, and his book is really excellent commentary on Bobby Fischer. 60 of his more games. Fischer is playing the black. He's going to do the Sicilian here. This is quite the game, for reasons that I'll explain to you in a little while. Knight f3, and Fischer does the classic d6, and of course Bilek pushes up the d4, and the pawns are going to exchange. Pawn takes the pawn, the knight takes the pawn. This is all classic, typical Sicilian stuff at this point. Now, after the knight takes the pawn, then this knight goes to f6. And Bilek pulls out the other knight at c3, which is good stuff. Fischer was renowned for pushing the a6. This isn't the Sicilian dragon where they push the g pawn and then fianchetto the bishop. He's going to push the a6. Typical Sicilian. Now, Bilek is doing aggressive moves. He's bringing the bishop up to g5, putting the question to the knight. It's not an immediate crisis at this point, however, but he is going to be looking carefully at this situation. Fischer gently nudges his pawn up to e6. He doesn't come up to e5, he comes to e6, giving himself a compact but very powerful center. Kind of interesting there. f4, Bilek is coming at him hard. He's going to have a strong center, so Fischer dodges up here to queen b6. Now this particular queen side thrust is really quite famous for the black players in the Sicilian, based on what very little I know at this point. I'm learning more as I go through my studies, but this one is quite a popular move. The queen to d2 is one possible response, and now the question is, see, the reason this is so popular, the question is this pawn poisoned? Because obviously Fischer's taken the pawn. When the queen comes out to b6, that's the pawn. Now he hit the center knight also, but the queen, of course, is covering that knight, as is, well, not that bishop, but the other bishop. When it's not up here, the other option is to put it here. So the knight's covered, so he takes b2. The question is that a poisoned pawn? In other words, by putting his queen way down here, taking a mere pawn, has he taken his most powerful unit out of the fight for the king side? That's what Bilek is going to try to demonstrate. He's going to say, yes, that is not a good move for black. White always tries to demonstrate this. His pawn is covered on a2 with his knight. His pawn obviously is covered by the queen and the knight, so the rook comes to b1, which is covered also by the knight, chasing the queen away, right? Fischer, in several of his games as playing black in the Sicilian, put the queen to a3. Now this is the signal for Bilek to go forward through the center. He is now coming at him hard and furious. D is going to take e5, of course. and F is going to take E5. So at this point, what this does for Billick is it gives him central space. He's advanced his pawn, it gives him central space. It's going to chase away a knight that the bishop is also attacking, which is a defender of the king side. Were Fischer to castle king side, this might not be a good option of having his knight chased away. And he does drop back to D7. Now at D7 he can hit important central squares, of course. But so see, so far with the action, Billick is pointing the action to the center. Fischer's going to have to coordinate his pieces with the bishops and the knights, and possibly the rooks if he can get him involved, because his queen's way down here and it's going to take another tempo to get her back into the game. This is the theme of the poisoned pawn. Fischer was the master of the poisoned pawn idea. Billick continues to develop powerfully with the bishop to c4, which is a typical theme playing white with the Sicilian. Fischer's going to want to castle kingside. He's declared he's going to castle kingside, or he wouldn't waste that tempo. He would pull these out to castle queenside. So it's going to be a kingside, and it's going to be a kingside attack by Billick. And he immediately announces that with a stunning sacrifice, a really strong move. He takes the e6 pawn with his bishop. Wow, what is going on? That's a very strong move. He is getting ready to checkmate Bobby Fischer already. The f7 pawn is utterly weak. He can bring this knight right to here. He can bring this knight up to here. And Fischer has a serious problem with his king. So what do you do if you're Bobby Fischer? He calmly castled in the midst of the storm. Because, and here's Fischer's thinking that makes sense if you get yourself in this kind of a situation. Look at Billick's development. It's really excellent. I mean, seriously, this guy's playing okay chess. He has pieces developed all over the place in the center. It's obvious at this juncture, Fischer chasing down this pawn and then having to willy-nilly with his queen, he's behind in development. He doesn't want to get his king caught in the center. If that bishop would have taken f7, and he would have had to respond by taking it with his king being caught in the middle instead of being tucked away, there's so much firepower here, he could have got in big trouble. So this was Fischer's thinking along this line. He was saying, okay, look, yeah, he's coming with a full head of steam already soon in the game. I need to tuck my king. Yes, I want to fight him back, but not until the king is safe. That was Fischer's thinking. Billick follows suit. He says, hey, good idea, let's castle. You can see the majority of Billick is over here, his pieces. So his king is tucked away behind the pawn, and he's got a rook on an open file, incidentally, which is nice. So, but you can see that everything appears to be pointing this way, doesn't it? I mean, when you look at that chessboard, you know, Jeremy Silman, that's right, Jeremy Silman gave me this shirt along with an edition of that book, the 4th edition of Reassess Your Chess, an outstanding book. Silman says when you read the board position, you have to do what the board dictates, and this board is telling us all this is the direction he's coming. Right? Nice. Well, what do? First, you eliminate some offensive players. Bishop takes the g5. That was a strong, in connection with the queen and bopping up a knight here and there. That's a strong bishop. So this is a good exchange for Fischer to make. Put the queen up there. She would be easier to chase away. She's not going to sacrifice herself in this kind of a situation. More than likely not, like a bishop would, right? You can exchange a knight for a bishop. Exchanging a queen for a bishop or a queen for a knight, that's a completely different matter. And now, Fischer gives himself some breathing room. He's got an escape hatch, plus he's putting the question to the queen. So he's trying to keep the initiative. Queen simply dodges down to h4, which is good. And now, Fischer takes the knight. Okay, so he's eliminating another potential really powerful attacker, right? But look what Billick has. Rook takes f7. I mean, it's coming on. This looks spooky, doesn't it? You go, whoa. And now you're going to have a discovered check if the rook moves back. If the rook moves back to here and puts Fischer in check, Fischer can lose his queen. I mean, that's a tough move there. What do you do? What do you do? Well, you take it with your rook, of course. Now, however, your own rook is pinned, right? And he's going to be down the exchange if Billick chooses to take advantage of that pin. But there's a stronger move, Billick thinks. Now that he's got his development, and he is better developed than Fischer. You can see Fischer's side is completely untouched. This is amazing to see from Fischer, isn't it? He drops his queen down here and goes, check. You're going, holy cow, man. That's quite an attacker, so it seems. Well, Fischer puts his knight in between the queen and king. No more check. Billick now takes the rook. Check. I mean, his attack is just, it looks like he's just eviscerating Fischer, right? Well, the king can take that bishop. Billick in the process, see, this is the fun of the strategy of chess, isn't it? Billick in the process of eliminating defenders through exchanges, he's also eliminating his own offensive pieces. He is doing this with a piece attack, not a pawn attack. And so that makes a difference, right? Well, the king has stepped out onto the open file. The rook's not doing anything on this b file. He can't take that pawn, so he comes over here to the open file and says check to the king. He's got his queen here. He's got a knight that can dance up to here really quick. This is a tough call. Rather than going back, Fischer comes forward. King g6. There is more room to maneuver here. Right? Well, now, rook takes f8. So Billick is finding ways to eliminate Bobby Fischer's material and have an attack. Bishop comes up to d7. Knight comes over to f3, again approaching the king with hopefully what Billick is hoping is a coordinated effort with his rook, with his queen across to here, and his knight. So he's hoping he's got enough. He's down, but his position as an attacker looks really good, especially with the exposed nature of Fischer's king, right? This looks pretty tough for Bobby. Well, he does dodge over here. Queen e3, check. King goes to h1. A good move. After all, he is in check, right? Now, he can't come to here to go check because the knight. He's certainly not going to go there to check. Duh. But he can go here and go check, so he does. And the knight jumps down to g1. Fischer has a way to get rid of the pawn. So take the c2 pawn. Queen takes c2. Now, Billick is going to begin, hopefully, coordinating before Fischer gets a chance to develop the rest of his army. Billick is going to hopefully coordinate the queen and the rook. This pawn isn't really going to be able to do a whole lot. The knight now is on defensive duty, so the game shows that Billick has 2 pieces and Fischer has 4. All of a sudden, Billick's attack hasn't, it's more or less fizzled, hasn't it? Kind of interesting. Well, with this rook coming to g8, Fischer's going to come over here to f2 and take the file, because in case of an emergency, he can scoop his queen down here real quick for defense. Right? Seems to me like that's what Fischer was thinking. Well, of course, the rook is going to go back to the open file and directly challenge the queen. Yes. And it almost seems as if, and now Fischer takes the A2 pawn, it almost seems as if you're wondering, how is Billick surviving so long against the great Bobby Fischer? What is going on here? How come Fischer is nowhere in the center? Neither is Billick. Fischer's king is wide open, exposed. Billick's is completely tucked and safe. What is going on here? This is so fascinating. Billick goes rook to f3. And here, Billick lost on time. His flag fell. He lost the game on time. You go, wow, you know, they had 2.5 hours. It took Billick 2.5 hours to put that kind of an attack together and try to get Bobby Fischer, and he didn't succeed. Now, the most astonishing thing about this game, and I've read 2 different versions of it. I'm not quite sure which one is correct. On Bobby Fischer's clock, during the course of this 2.5-hour contest with Billick, Fischer didn't even use 2 minutes. Fischer's clock hadn't even ticked away 2 minutes. He played this game from his vast reserves of knowledge of the Sicilian defense over the board in an instant each move. That is utterly dazzling. That's mind-boggling. And his opponent ran out of time because he was not familiar with the Sicilian. That shows you how carefully Bobby had prepared the Sicilian. There's another story, another version of that story that says Fischer's clock didn't even have 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes. So I've seen the story with 10 minutes, and I've seen the story with just an astonishing, breathtaking 2 minutes, which means Fischer, it was a 27-move game. Fischer wouldn't have taken more than just a couple of seconds each move to make the move. If it was 10 minutes, he would have thought about it a little bit. That shows you the magnitude of the preparation of Bobby Fischer with the Sicilian. I found, maybe 6 or 7 games with Fischer playing black as the Sicilian, that so far he's won them all. It's fascinating to see how the Grandmasters handle the Sicilian, both as black and white. So there's your chess exercise for the day. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoy making these videos. I'm enjoying playing you guys on chess.com. I think what I'll do for the next 10 videos or so is I will explore some Sicilian games with you. I've been playing through them today. Today's Saturday, and I've been using the day to clean the yard and get ready for all my outdoor barbecues and all that. But I've been also playing through several Sicilian games from Karpov, Kasparov, Sarawan, some of the old Fischer games, Polgar, some of those, and they really are spectacular. It's quite fun to see how the Grandmasters play, because this, of course, is our road to chess mastery, right? Studying the Grandmasters games. That's how we do it. That is how we improve, practice. So anyway, have a great life, be good, do well, sleep nice, have pleasant dreams, pursue chess excellence, and I will see you in the next chess video.